NBA truth seekers, welcome back. Zach here. It's October 28th, 2016. In about an hour, Game 3 of the World Series is getting underway. In this video, I want to preview the game just like I did Game 1, Game 2. In Game 1, I gave the edge to the Indians. They won. Game 2, I thought the Cubs would pull that out. That happened. Game 3, I'm expecting the Cubs to win tonight. I'm very curious what's going to happen in Game 4 because Game 4 is where the curse of the Billy Goat began in 1945. We're going to talk about what this game and tomorrow's game has to do with the curse of the Billy Goat, a curse we've talked about a lot in these preview videos. If you have not seen my work on the baseball playoffs and this World Series during this postseason or even during the regular season, I'll link those videos in the description. In spring training of this year, I said why the Cubs would be in the World Series. I'm expecting them to win it, possibly in Game 7. Last year, I predicted that the Mets would win the World Series in spring training. The Mets made it to the World Series, but they lost to the Royals. By season's end, I understood why they lost to the Royals. But anyhow, here we are, Game 3. Indians at the Cubs. It's the first game in Chicago in a World Series in 71 years. This hasn't happened since 1945. Game 1, Game 2, both in Cleveland. The next 3 games in Chicago, and then, if need be, 2 more games. If need be, after the 3 games in Chicago, it would go back to 2 more in Cleveland. So if this does go to Game 7 and the Cubs are to prevail in Game 7, it would mean they're winning on the road in Cleveland, sort of like how Cleveland just broke their sports curse championship by winning a Game 7 on the road in California. Think about that if it happens. The Cubs break the curse in Cleveland, a city that broke their curse earlier this year, June 19th, on the real King James's birthday. So anyway, today's date, October 28th, 2016, date with 74 numerology. Special number in Freemasonry, Masonic equals 74, Jewish 74, occult 74. Today, Anthony Weiner, big news story, Hillary Clinton. I've been showing the ties between the election and the World Series. The name Weiner equals 74. It's no coincidence we're hearing about Anthony Weiner today. At the end of this video, I'll show you what that news story has to do with the World Series. The answer is a lot. So 74, this special number, the name Joshua has a gematria of 74. So does the name Jesus. If you didn't know, the English translation of Jesus is the name Joshua. Joshua 74, Jesus 74, Messiah 74, Muhammad 74. We saw Muhammad Ali die at age 74. A man who became boxing champion of the world in 64, the year Cleveland had last won a pro sports championship. Muhammad Ali died after Game 1 of the NBA Finals this year. So anyway, starting pitcher for Cleveland, Joshua 74, special number. We'll see how Joshua performs tonight. I'm going to show you what's so interesting about Josh Tomlin pitching this game at Wrigley in Chicago. Today's date also has a life lesson number of 47. I'm thinking of Miguel Montero, number 47 on the Cubs. He hit that walk-off home run to give the Cubs their 94th win in their 147th game of the season. Have a video on that. That was 47 days before November 2nd, what would be Game 7 of the World Series. The year 47 is the year MLB made their logo. It's the year of the first NBA championship. The 47th season of the NFL was the first season with the Super Bowl. Special numbers, 47 and 74, reflections of each other. The word judge equals 47 in gematria, jury 74. Today's date also has 54 numerology, baseball equals 54. Will we see number 54 for the Cubs closing it out tonight in Chicago? Winning the first World Series game in Chicago in 71 years. Today's date also has the 38 numerology, connected to the gematria of the name Murphy, which was the goat, the Billy Goat, that the curse of the Billy Goat on the Cubs was attached to. The word Jew also equals 38. Wall Street Journal put out this article about how the Chicago Cubs are the official team of Jews just before the World Series began. Very interesting. If you've missed my work on the curse of the Billy Goat, the false Jews, the Zionist Jews, You got to check that out. The word Zionist equals 112. This is the 112th World Series. Freemasonry and Zionists controlling the world of professional sports, media, entertainment. If the Cubs win tonight, game 3, it'll be the 112th win of their season. 103 wins in the regular season. This will be their 9th win in the postseason. 112th total in the 112th World Series. Would be pretty symbolic first game back in Chicago. They would also take a series lead of 2-1 that looks something like the number 21. Illinois is the 21st state. The Cleveland Indians pitcher, the visiting pitcher tonight, he's Joshua Tomlin, goes by Josh Tomlin, middle name Aubrey. Show you something about this guy. He's born on a date with 51 numerology. Cleveland has gematria 51. Born on a date with 33 numerology. Cleveland equals 33. He pitches for that team, so it's fitting. Born on a date with 113 numerology, the number of the Scottish Rite Freemasons. Mainstream, dishonest equal 113. Important numbers in professional sports because they're mainstream, they're dishonest, they're deceptive, they're scripted, deceiving the fans. He goes by the name Josh Tomlin, which has gematria 45. Like Illinois equals 45, like Wrigley equals 45, like Cubs equals 45. Last time the Cubs were in a World Series before this year was 1945, 71 years ago. Game 1 of the World Series was on a date with 71 numerology. The Indians came into that game in the postseason 7-1. The starting pitcher for the Cubs, John Lester, born January 7th, a date written 7/1 in most parts. So notice his full name, Joshua Aubrey Tomlin, in gematria sums to 71, that special number. The first day of the World Series, also the first day of the NBA season that happens to be the 71st season of the NBA. For the Golden State Warriors and Cleveland Cavaliers, their big three both scored 71 points. Remember, sports are very scripted, to the point, to the box score, on the football field, to the hash mark. It's amazing once you're aware of what's going on. The man pitching tonight for the Indians, he's never lost in the postseason. He's 2-0. If he loses tonight, he'll be 2-1, a lot like 21, Illinois, the 21st state. If the Cubs pitcher wins tonight, he comes in 1-1. He'll also be 2-1. And I think we might very well see that. Kyle Hendricks, who's been on fire, is pitching for the Cubs. His full name, not his full name, the name he goes by in simple English gematria, his pitching name, Josh Tomlin, sums to 135, like Wrigley Field as well. You know, big way. Again, Cubs equals 45, Illinois, Wrigley, Josh Tomlin, first pitcher to pitch there in 71 years. His full name equals 71. First pitcher to pitch there in a World Series in 71 years. So he's going up against Kyle Hendricks, born on Pearl Harbor Day again. When you write out 44, it sums to 144. This is coming during the time of the 44th president who has the Chicago ties. When you write out 71, it sums to 144. African American equals 71. Birth of a Nation equals 71. They said the film made $7.1 million when they first reported on it. Kyle Hendricks equals 144, who's pitching tonight. Pearl Harbor Day equals 144, which he's born on, and that's the number for time. You know, here we are, a special year in time, 108 years since the Cubs last won the World Series. Major League equals 108 stitches on a baseball. I'm going to show you an article written by ABC News about 108 that's mind-blowing. The date he was born, December 7th, 1989, date with a life lesson number of 46. Hendricks, his last name equals 46, like Chicago Cubs, like Chicago, like Game 3, which he's pitching in. His first game, Game 3, perfect. Back in Chicago for the first game of the World Series. He's also born on a date with numerology at 37. Chicago, the small way, equals 37. He's also born on a date with 108 numerology. You know, a win tonight, the Cubs fans are going to be feeling it. And here's the one thing I want to say. I presented a narrative when I did my preview video for the World Series overall. I said if I'm wrong about the Cubs, here's the narrative for the Indians. It does exist. If the Cubs were to lose this year, I would pencil them in big time to win the World Series next year. because next year is going to be 108 seasons since they last won. If they don't get it this year, 108 years later, they're getting it next year in the 108th season, you know? Cubs might have to go 2 years in a row to win it like the Royals did. We'll see. I am expecting the Cubs to win, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying if they don't, that's going to be it. This game comes 40 days before his upcoming birthday, Kyle Hendricks. 40 days. That's interesting because Hillary equals 40, United States 40. I've been showing the synchronicities between the World Series and the election. Email equals 40. Today, the email back in the headlines, the FBI's reinvestigating. It's all scripted. It's all a joke. Your sports are scripted. Your elections are scripted. We're living out an agenda filled with distractions so that we don't see what's going on, or at least to keep us from seeing what's going on. The name Kyle Hendricks in gematria of the small way sums to 63. If you count every number up to 63, it sums to 2016, like the year we're in. You know, fitting man here for the year. If the Cubs win the World Series, this guy will be in the running for MVP. If he has a big game tonight, you know, could be an early conversation. His full name has gematria of 110. President equals 110. We talked about how today has 47 numerology in the beginning of the video, how Miguel Montero wears 47. The word president, the small way, is 47. He also has a name with 146 gematria. The Cubs clinched their playoff berth in their 146th game, getting their 93rd win. Last year and the year before, I was documenting this pattern being coded with 146 in the Cubs, and then this year they clinch in their 146th game. I think it was all a riddle up to this year. The name Hendricks also has gematria of 91 like Chicago Cubs. When you count the numbers 1 through 13, they total 91. It's been 13 years since the Steve Bartman incident. Steve Bartman's throwing out the pitch tonight. Remember, the name Steve equals 71. World Series began on a 71 date. You know, if the Cubs lose tonight, they're going to be saying, uh-oh, did Steve Bartman curse him again? So Game 3 against got that gematria 46, like Hendricks, like Chicago Cubs. Jake Arrieta got the first no-hitter of the season 46 days after his birthday on the 112th day of 2016. This is the 112th World Series. Joe Maddon, the manager of the Cubs, to his birthday from this game is 103 days. The Cubs won 103 games this regular season. They're under the curse of the Billy Goat. Billy Goat 103. Jacob Arrieta, he's been the focal point that I've noticed throughout the season for the Cubs season. He has the name 103 gematria. He's from Farmington, which equals 54. Farmington, farming athletes, Billy Goat. Remember, Kyle Schwarber just came back from his season-ending injury. He came back 199 days after it was announced he was out for the season. 199 is the 46th prime. Chicago 46, Chicago Cubs 46. The day the Cubs advanced to the World Series, October 22nd, right at the end of the game, the announcer came on and said, 46 years ago to the day, Billy Sionis, who cursed the Cubs with the curse of the Billy Goat, had died. 1970, October 22nd, 46 years to the day. What I noticed about the Cubs is they only have one defensive player in their lineup that has facial hair, and it's Kyle Schwarber, who just came back off this fake ACL injury 199 days later. Nobody comes back from a fully torn ACL in 199 days, especially not Kyle Schwarber, who's overweight. Come on, people. He can play ball. A lot of overweight kids can play baseball. You know, the best hitter I ever saw growing up was this big fat kid, and no one could crush like him. You know, there is something to the fat man in baseball. It's the sport they can play. Anyway, Kyle Schwarber, look at him. He's got a goatee. Curse of the Billy Goat. Do you see how we're being mocked? No one else on the team has facial hair, except for this guy that they brought back with the goatee. So anyway, this game 103 days from the manager's birthday. There's a little Billy Goat. Let me show you some other things real quick. The news just ran this story right here. 108-year-old Cubs fan. What this reminded me of, Truth Seeker, is how during the time of the NBA Finals, the Golden State Warriors ran this story right here, or the news ran this story about the Golden State Warriors. The 106-year-old fan that really wanted to see the Warriors win. The Warriors lost in Game 7, their 106th game of the season, a number I talked about all year in regards to the NBA season and the playoffs, which began on the 106th day of the year. Anyway, I was talking about 106 all basketball season and why the Cleveland Cavaliers would defeat the Warriors. This year, since spring training, I've been talking about 108 in the Chicago Cubs and why they're going to be in the World Series and win it. Now look, 108-year-old woman, Vivian Barron, 108. This article is written by somebody named John Kyleman, 112, like the 112th World Series. Again, 108, special number to Major League Baseball, 108 stitches on the ball. Look at how Major League equals 45, like Cubs, like Wrigley, like Illinois, like the 45th World Series curse. This article was written just before Game 2 that the Cubs won, a date with a lifeless at number of 45. Jacob Arrieta was on the mound that day. The author of this article is named the small way. 49, Jacob Arrieta. Where's number 49? I pointed out before the game, if the Cubs won, it would make the Cubs and Indians 10-10 all time. Revelation equals 10-10. It also equals 49. Missed my Game 2 preview video. I was talking about that. The name Vivian Barron, the name of this woman, gematria 55 and 91, numbers connected to Chicago Cubs. Theo Epstein as well, connected to breaking the curse of the Red Sox. Terry Francona, the manager of the Indians, was the manager of the Red Sox. This woman, her story, she's supposedly at the Riverside Senior Life in Kankakee. Gematria of 303, like 33. Like CC, Chicago Cubs, like C versus C, Cubs versus Cleveland. Cleveland, the only city that sums to 33. Indian equals 33. Tigers equal 33. If the Cubs win, it'll be their third World Series win, all over teams with 33 connections. And off the top of my head, I think the only two in the league are the Indians, Cleveland Indians, and the Detroit Tigers. So look at this. ABC wrote this article about 108 in the Chicago Cubs and the significance of 108 years. I'm not going to read out all this, but just pause the screen as we go down. Like, pause and read this right now. And when you're done reading, unpause, because we're going down. Now pause and read this part. This is all part of an article written by ABC.com. Now pause and read this part. All of this connected to baseball, Cubs history, and 108. Now pause and read this part. I cannot believe this article that they put out. I feel like I'm truly being mocked with this article, but it also just blows my mind at the same time. You know, did you pause and read here? Pause and read one more time. You know? Dan Barrett earlier this year talked about the Chicago Great Fires in 10-8 as well. You know, I told you, sub Dan Barrett, student in my work with a great mind who makes a lot of important connections that I don't see. Here, they even bring it up in this article here in ABC. And what have I been saying? These sports are scripted with the same people who create all this wrongdoing and propaganda and false news. The same gang that runs our news, runs our government, runs our TV, runs our sports leagues. It's Freemasonry. It's Freemasonry. Come see my blog about what I just posted about LeBron James in Game 1 doing the hidden hand while the score was 4-2. It's undeniable. It's undeniable that Freemasonry is running by this code, scripting this stuff in our face. They're using this ancient esoteric knowledge that none of us have ever been taught about, mocking us with it, scripting history with it. So I'm going to do a video here on Anthony Weiner and Hillary Clinton today. This news, it comes 54 days after Anthony Weiner's birthday. His birthday here, September 4th, 1964. I want to show you this. From his birthday to today is 54 days. Baseball equals 54, 54 outs in a complete 9-inning game. He's born September 4th, and his full birth name is Anthony David Weiner, which equals 94. Again, very quickly. This Major League Baseball season began on April 3rd, 2016, the 94th day of the year because it was a leap year. When you write out 94 as a word, it sums to the same thing as World Series, 57 and 147. Terry Francona is 57 years old right now, manager of the Indians. The Cubs this year won their 94th game in their 147th game of the season. 94, 147 connected to World Series. The Indians won 94 games in the regular season, Now here's a guy coming up before the first game in Chicago with this 94 name gematria 54 days after his birthday. And also, the story earlier this year about the sex fraud with the 15-year-old, that story came out on a date with 46 numerology, again connected to Chicago, who has connections to Hillary, who's born in Chicago. Anthony Weiner, New York. Hillary Clinton, Chicago and New York. New York and Chicago, the Zionist meccas. And New York, always connected to baseball because it's the major baseball city. So I'll do a more in-depth video on this. But truly, this news propaganda, it's scripted the same way the sports are. And they're synced up together. That's why we had 9/11, the Patriot Act, the New England Patriots. Tom Brady was the 199th pick of the draft. 199, the 46th prime. Like Kyle Schwarber coming back 199 days after his fake injury from April 9th, 9/4. Tom Brady played at Michigan, Michigan 46, Patriots 46. Anyway, Hillary, she's going to be under a glass ceiling, about to break a glass ceiling as the first female president, the 45th president. She's going to be at the Javits Center. Look at this. Javits Center 47 like president. Glass ceiling 54 like baseball. Think about this. Imagine the Cubs breaking the curse, and then Hillary, born in Chicago, who's a Cubs fan, becoming the first female president. Javits Center, the big way, equals 146, the number that was for the clinching. The Cubs clinching their first or their playoff berth in their 146th game with their 93rd win. Hillary became first lady in 93. The full name of the convention center is 112, like this being the 112th World Series. If you missed my work on the NLCS Game 6 that the Cubs won and advanced on, the big number between the pitchers was 319. This convention center has gematria of 319. It tells me I need to learn more about this number. It must have some greater significance. When you write 319, it sums to 216 and 108. Again, there's 108 double stitches in a baseball, meaning 216 individual stitches. Cleveland, home of the 216 area code. We saw Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Cleveland won the game. Last game in Cleveland of the NBA Finals, the game summed to 216 points. This man in history that the convention center is named after has 187 name gematria. The name he went by, Jacob Javits, gematria of 112, like the 112th World Series. Isn't it strange that Hillary's going to be in this building right after the 112th World Series, with this World Series connected to the election? And again, remember, in spring training, I said Cubs to win the World Series, and it would be connected to Barack Obama passing on the torch to Hillary. Two people in the Democratic Party with Chicago ties. This man died at age 81. Chicago equals 81 in Jewish gematria. Remember when they went up 8-1 in the 8th inning against the Dodgers? The day he was born, date with 46 numerology as well as 37 Chicago numbers. Died on a date with Freemason connections. He also died in West Palm Beach, Florida, having gematria of 193, the 44th prime. Kill equals 44. Florida, that 38 gematria like death. So anyway, this is what it all is, scripted sports, scripted news, ritual murder. It's been going on since the beginning of this country because it's been run by Freemasons, and this is how they operate. It's not a pretty picture. Saw this morning on the TV that people are coughing up between $2,000 and $20,000 a ticket to go to this World Series. This is why the gang rules over us. I'm trying to run a campaign to raise $30,000 to build a very professional website and app that can unite the truth seekers of this world. I'm trying to raise that from an audience of 30,000 people because I know that's all the money we need to do it. And if everybody chipped in $1, we could have this thing built on the way already. We as a people, as a collective people, can't accomplish that. But, some people out there, they got so much money, they'll cough up $20,000 for one seat at the rigged baseball game, run by the gang that murders people. See what's wrong with this picture? Of course, the people who are coughing up this money, they don't know it's all rigged. They don't know people are getting murdered. They don't know how the election's rigged. They haven't figured out what a big mocking it all is. Undone by Weiner. Of course, Anthony Weiner with the sex scandal. Just a couple weeks ago, I showed the parallels between the Donald Trump recordings, the Bill Clinton accusers, and I even brought up the Anthony Weiner parallel. Now he's even been brought into it with the latest news. It's just so predictable. It's also predictable, Truth Seeker. That's how I keep predicting the sports, by reading the numbers. Until next time.